of the odd things about the fantasy genre is how bad most of it is. A lot of the time, fantasy books will not do anything new or interesting or brave, and as a result, be really boring. To get by in this genre, you have to take risks. Or at least that's what I thought. Hello everyone and welcome to the Book Cafe. If you're new here, consider subscribing. This week's book review is The Pagan Knight by Tim Aker. Now, as I insinuated in the cold open, a lot of times fantasy can be fairly unoriginal. Not only do we frequently end up retelling the same stories, oftentimes we end up retelling them in the same ways. Which is why a lot of the best fantasy stories that have something unique to them that sets them apart. Mistborn takes the quest against a dark god and turns it on its head by making it a heist. Game of Thrones kills absolutely everybody. The best fantasy recently has always had something original going for it, which is why this book was so surprising for me, because it wasn't surprising at all, which in any other case I would say was a sign of a bad book. Yet somehow, Aker manages to make The Pagan Knight interesting and refreshing and enjoyable, while still being a retread of a lot of the stuff you're used to. The author isn't exactly returning back to the roots of fantasy, but The Pagan Knight is very old school, and it tells a very strong story. It's about a land that's been split by religious tension, with the church in the south attempting to eliminate the gods of the north. Unfortunately, without worship, the gods of the north have started starving and basically gone feral. Meanwhile, Malcolm Blackley, a northern hero from former wars, is asked to mediate peace between the north and the south during a rather troubling time. Thanks to a religiously motivated massacre and in retaliation, he fails, and thus he and his son are forced to prepare for war. The author is very sparing with the details on this world. You don't get a lot of them. You don't really need to. Aker is very good at showing instead of telling in a manner that is actually surprisingly clear. There doesn't seem to be much of a deeper mystery or driving question the way there is in Sanderson or Rothfuss. But the way it's written is very solid. It makes you care about these people. It makes honor feel important. I felt actual revulsion at the villains. And the villains are great. They're bad people, but it's shown how they got that way. And it's shown what suspicion and religiously motivated racism can do to a person. The big thing about this book is that, in a lot of cases, in order to make one part of a book great, you have to do so at the detriment to another. And in fantasy, that's a risk you usually have to take in order to stand out. This author, instead of taking that kind of risk, manages to build a foundation that's strong enough to carry the entire book. In doing so, takes the biggest risk he possibly could, and pulls it off flawlessly. No parts of this book suffer, and the whole thing settles out just north of good. I'd say very good, actually. So I would rate this by new. I really liked this book, and I looked forward to reading it. Have you read The Pagan Knight? What do you think about it? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, remember to show it by clicking the like button. Click on the dragon here to subscribe, and here to watch more videos like this one from the Book Cafe. I will see you all next week. Until then, read good fantasy.